What's going on, folks?
How we doing?
We are here. It is time. This is the thing, and we're gonna do it.
I feel like you might have oversold with the
Yeah,
tagline. This is not so much a debate because
right.
I think Kaiser and I are eye to eye on this particular movie.
Oh yes, I'm sure we probably line up a lot on the original trilogy. When we
Yeah,
start getting
yeah,
into the prequels, that we start probably diverging a little
a
bit.
little bit, a little bit. I saw someone in the chat. Jar Jar Binks is the greatest character ever made. You
Let me
know,
guess. That's probably Bobby, wasn't it?
no, no, that was Wicked Wookie.
Okay.
But so
Okay.
not to get ahead of ourselves in a series of reviews we're going to do, but if it wasn't for Jar Jar, you wouldn't have the Luke Skywalker saga. That's all I'm going to say. If it wasn't for Jar Jar, you wouldn't have the original trilogies. So we'll leave it at that for now.
Okay. I mean, I would say theoretically that's kind of a, I mean, because that was it was a prequel, so that was an afterthought. So I don't quite give it total credence, but I
Well,
see where
but
you're coming
okay, but
from.
yeah, okay. We'll save it for
We'll
the
save that
Clone
one for another
Wars.
day.
Yeah,
Yes.
Attack of the Clones rather.
Yep. All right. Well, folks, it is time. We are here, and it is. We've long talked about doing this, the sit down and chat, talk about Star Wars, and one of our absolute favorite of all time, at least definitely mine.
Yes, and I like how you call it Star Wars and not A New Hope because it is Star
Yes,
Wars. It is Star
exactly.
Wars. And so it might be a little confusing to some people that did come in thinking we're going to talk and debate about all of Star Wars. What at least what I was trying to what I was I'm thinking we're going to do here is we're going to talk about each movie in succession. And we're
Yes.
starting with the original Star Wars, not a new I mean it's called A New Hope now. But
Yeah. It was renamed A New Hope in 1981.
no. 78.
78? Okay.
No, wait, no. I'm sorry. It was part 4. It was named part 4 in 78. You're right.
Yeah.
81 it was titled A New Hope.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So,
And he's like George
anyways,
tinkering with his creation. It kind of goes way back.
it does. I mean, it goes way back. So he redid the title scroll or the whatever you want to call it from the beginning. The when it was re-released the following year in 1978, he called it Episode 4. And then 3 years later, he called it A New Hope Episode 4 and then went into the scroll. So he's been
Yep.
tinkering with his movies since the beginning.
Right. So this, yeah, everybody likes to look at the special editions and be like, "Oh man, he did so much. He messed with it. Why did he do that?" It's like he's been doing this for a long time, people.
Yes. Yes, he
I'm
has.
gonna go ahead and take that off the screen there. Everybody knows where to find me. My link tree and stuff's in the chat, and of course, Mrs. K Griff is awesome. She's down there and already dropping links. Thank you so
Well,
much,
she
Mrs.
wants to
K
know if I
Griff.
like Ahsoka. We'll get to Ahsoka at
Yeah,
some point.
we'll get there. All
Today's
right.
about Star Wars.
All right. Let's see if we can. There we go. Embiggen us so we get the full screen effect. There we go.
We'll see how long this helmet lasts because it's not the most comfortable and I can't see very well out of it.
Yep. I really wish I had one of like the Wookiee masks with the. Just
Oh,
like,
that would be awesome.
I'd have to take the batteries out within 5 minutes, but yeah, that would be
Wicked
great.
Wookie, you say hard pass on Disney Wars. However, have you watched all of them? Because there's some good stuff in there. There's some not good stuff, but there's some good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, Rogue One, I would say was pretty good. I've heard Andor's good, but I have not actually watched it yet. It just kind of didn't really pique my interest because I'm like, y'all know where these characters are going, right?
Yes.
So, yeah.
Do you okay? So do you want to tell people kind of like how we broke this movie down and what we were thinking?
Okay, so, and you can feel free to jump in, correct me if I miss anything there. But so the basic structure that we kind of wanted to break this movie down on is we wanted to first kind of examine the plot, the kind of the structure of it, and then character development. We wanted to talk about the cinematography, sound design, direction, the acting, some of the historical context, the cultural significance, and the personal response is kind of how I've got it written down. So we'll kind of break it up in there, and I'm sure that there will be a little bit of, back and forthing on that, but
Sure.
at the end of
Everything's always kind of intertwined, but those are essentially the areas we were going to cover.
Correct. So, all right.
Yeah. So do we want to do you want to give the plot summary since I can't see very well?
All right. Well, thank you for your notes on there, and I'll just read directly from that if that's all right by you.
Oh, I'm good with it.
Okay. I say your words. I want to make sure I'm not taking anything out of context.
No, you'll be fine.
All right. And I'm just going to scoot this over here. Okay, I'm moving my windows around.
How many people have not watched Star Wars? That's what I'm actually kind of curious of.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Let me actually, while I'm thinking about it, let's start a poll.
So this is episode 4, the very first Star Wars, 1977. You'd be surprised how many people I come across are like, I've never watched a single Star Wars.
Okay. All right. Got the
Your
poll
former
there
pup was
in the
named after
chat.
Jin Erso.
All right. So got that one there.
Cool.
And boy, howdy, that is filling up fast.
See, there's some people that haven't seen any Star Wars. See, this is why the plot summary is good.
Yes, absolutely. And say, I do want to make sure. Oh, hey, what's up, Valhalla? And say, yeah, I do really, yeah.
Bring back Ewoks. I like the Ewoks, but I was, I was a kid when I saw them.
Yep. Bobby's got it on Laserdisc. Nice.
Like the original version on Laserdisc was used for one of the remasters, right?
Yeah, the Harmies 720.
Yeah.
They used the soundtrack off of that one for it.
Okay.
All right. And yeah, I'll definitely mention that later because I think it definitely bears folks knowing about that because it is a wonderful thing that is happening because Disney will never actually do it. All right. Yeah, sorry, I had to flush something down real quick. All right. The galaxy is in the midst of a civil war is where we start out in this movie. Spies have stolen the plans to the Galactic Empire's Death Star battle station. Rebel leader Princess Leia has the plans, but her ship is captured by the Imperial forces under the command of the evil Darth Vader. Before she is captured, Leia hides the plans in the memory of an astromech droid R2-D2, along with a holographic recording. Sorry, there you go. R2 is D2 escapes to the surface of the desert planet of Tatooine with C-3PO, a protocol droid. The droids are captured by Jawa traders and sold to moisture farmers Owen and Beru and their nephew Luke Skywalker. Yeah, Owen and Beru Lars. Yeah, I almost for a second there was like, wait, the last name's not Beru. Like, wait a minute, brain.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah, while cleaning the R2-D2, Luke accidentally triggers part of Leia's message requesting help from Obi-Wan Kenobi. The next morning, Luke looks for R2-D2, who went off searching for Obi-Wan and met Ben Kenobi, an old hermit who lives in the hills, out beyond the Dune Sea, if I remember correct.
Yes.
So Obi-Wan tells Luke that he was a former Jedi Knight and the peacekeepers of the Galactic Republic, using supernatural powers derived from an energy known as the Force, who were all wiped out by the Empire. Contrary to his uncle's statements, Luke learns that his father fought alongside Obi-Wan Kenobi and as a Jedi Knight during the Clone Wars. He tells Luke that a former Jedi, Darth Vader, betrayed and murdered his father. Obi-Wan then presents to Luke with his father's lightsaber. Obi-Wan views the rest of Leia's message, where she begs Obi-Wan to take the Death Star plans to her home planet of Alderaan. Obi-Wan invites Luke to accompany him to Alderaan and learn the ways of the Force. Luke initially declines, then changes his mind after discovering that Imperial stormtroopers are searching for 3PO and R2 and destroyed his home and killed his aunt and uncle. Obi-Wan and a smuggler, Han Solo, and his partner Chewbacca transport them to Alderaan on the Millennium Falcon. Upon the Falcon, Luke is trained by Obi-Wan in the ways of the Force. Upon arrival at the location of Alderaan, the group discovers that the planet has been destroyed on the command of Grand Moff Tarkin. God bless Peter Cushing.
Yes.
The late, great Peter Cushing.
No, he filmed all of his scenes in slippers.
Yeah, I remember that. Also, funny story about we'll talk about later. There's a great behind the scenes for another movie that came out of this that actually ended up being a thing in Rogue One. Anyway.
Oh, yeah. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Yeah. For a 45-year-old movie.
At this point, yeah. The Millennium Falcon is captured by the Death Star's tractor beam and brought into its hangar bay. While Obi-Wan goes to disable the tractor beam, Luke discovers that Leia is in prison on board, and with the help of Han and Chewie, sets off to rescue her. The group makes their way back to the Falcon, but on the way back to the Falcon, Obi-Wan engages in a lightsaber duel with Darth Vader. Once he is sure that the others can escape, Obi-Wan allows himself to be struck down by Vader. The Falcon escapes from the Death Star, but unknowingly carries a hidden tracker leading the Empire to the Rebel base. Back at the Rebel base on Yavin 4, a weakness in the Death Star is discovered in a thermal exhaust port. Let's say Luke joins the Rebel assault squadron. Walt,
I lost the spot.
Rebel assault squadron.
Yeah, and Han is paid for his transport and intends on leaving.
Okay, I saw Walton in there. I'm like, wait, what?
Oh, Walton. Oh, yeah, I don't know what that is.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the rebels attack the Death Star and suffer heavy losses after several unsuccessful attack runs, leaving Luke as one of the few surviving pilots. Vader leads the squadron of TIE fighters and prepares to attack Luke's X-Wing. Han returns and fires at Vader and the other Imperials, sending Vader spiraling away. With guidance from Obi-Wan, Luke uses the Force to destroy the Death Star seconds before it fires on the Rebel base. Or would fire on the Rebel base, I should say. And say, right. Yeah, Leia awards Han and Luke with medals for their heroism. And Chewie got shafted on that one.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. So that's the basic plot summary. Couple of things I had as I was rewatching this movie.
Yes.
We talk about plot holes, right? And there's not a ton of plot holes. There's, people always say, well, the weakness on the Death Star is a plot hole. It's really not a plot hole. It's a 1 in a million shot, and they're down to like a couple of pilots left trying to make this. The first couple of guys to take shots missed it, and Luke needs to use the Force in order to actually make it happen. So it's not a loophole. It's a challenging shot. It's a challenging thing to do.
Yeah, and I mean, if you really think about it from that perspective, I mean, you're talking about a small trench that is covered in cannons and guns, and there are tons of anti-air and ship-to-ship combat batteries all over the place on the surface of that thing. Trying to get into the trench is the hard part, and then there's still guns shooting at you through the trench, and then they have fighters that can come down and get you from there. This is basically a suicide run. So the fact that this little thermal exhaust port, this tiny little port, is sitting there in that trench, which is so heavily guarded, I don't consider that a plot hole. It's just kind of one of those, they're like, yeah, who's going to really get in here? Because, I mean, there's so many guns on board and on the surface of the Death Star. Who's going to really even try?
So I do have, there is in my mind potentially a plot hole with that scene, though. And that is the fact that Darth Vader felt like he needed to get into his TIE fighter and go out there. Now, he's like essentially one of the top commanders, right? He's not the Emperor. He's not, we have We have a couple of guys above him. Grand Moff Tarkin is one of them, but he's up there, right? Why does he feel the need to get into his TIE fighter and go out? We had a whole fleet of rebel ships that are essentially destroyed. We have 3 or 4, 5 of them left. That is it. It seems like the other TIE fighters in the canon are doing just fine. Why is it that he needs to go out there? Well, for plot reasons, he needs to go out there because once the Death Star blows up, he can't be on it because he's the bad guy that's going to carry over to the next movie. So for plot reasons, he needs to be in a TIE fighter, but logically, he doesn't. Even Tarkin says, we're going to abandon ship in our moment of triumph. Nobody's worried about
Right.
this succeeding. So why is it that Darth has to go out there? That's the only plot hole that's the big plot hole that I see in the movie.
Yeah, I think even they kind of explain that in the fact that it's really hard because the fighters are so small. Some of their turbo laser batteries are not really calibrated for fighters that small, so they end up deciding that it's easier to go out there and try and destroy them ship to ship. That was kind of the way that I interpreted what was said in the scene.
But still, you have to assume there's thousands of other pilots and thousands of other TIE fighters that could go out there. Darth didn't have to go out there himself.
No, but that also goes to the archetype of Vader's character, because Vader's character is... So, believe it or not, in the original script for Star Wars, Vader is not what he seems. And a lot of that carries over in the first movie. But then as the series went on, with Empire and Return of the Jedi, he took a much more assertive role in the plot, and they built him up to be like, the Emperor's right-hand guy. But I mean, even like right there in the the original Star Wars, like some of the Imperial commanders, like they openly mock him, the guy who is the Emperor's right hand, the guy who they should be freaking terrified of, the guy who can choke you with his mind. And yet you've got one of the commanders who literally in a conversation, is like, don't threaten us with your sorcerer's ways, Lord Vader, and just like openly mocks his religion and, calls him names.
So how about this too? Vader knows how powerful the Force is.
Yes.
And Vader knows that there's a potential that they could blow up the Death Star.
Right.
And so he wants to make sure that it doesn't happen. And no one else is taking the lead on this and is really taking it as seriously. Even Tarkin is like, wow, this is our moment of triumph. They're not going to do anything.
Yeah, it's like not going to happen. What the heck?
Yeah.
But yeah, again, that goes to again the origin of Star Wars, because Star Wars is based off of some of the old adventure serials like Flash Gordon and whatnot that George Lucas grew up on. And so there was always, you had the main bad guy, and then the bad guy had a character who was kind of the muscle. And Vader's character was supposed to be the muscle. He was supposed to be the big, burly, like scary enforcer who went in, wrecked the place up, and was supposed to, he goes and does these things not because of specifically like any kind of like plot detail. It was just kind of, that was a carryover from an older style of writing from the story.
Wicked Wookiee says in chat, he has the same issues with the Clone Wars, the cartoon, and Attack of the Clones, episode 3, where the Jedi are generals, yet they go out on the front lines. Well, this is very similar to World War II, actually. Yeah. So if you look at the model of the sort of the battles and the uniforms and stuff, it's modeled after World War II heavily. Yes. And there were a lot of generals that died in World War II. They were lower level generals. They were generals, though. But even think about Patton, right? He's on the front line. He's running those tanks up there. And there were a lot of generals that were down on the front lines fighting. And so
right,
I think it's fine that they were generals. They weren't, upper level staff. They were low level generals, and they were out there.
Well, yeah, back then in World War II, there were a lot, like you said, there were a lot more generals because you didn't have long-range communications for the most part. So you needed a field command structure.
Yep.
And that's what the generals that were on the field were. So, yeah, we just don't have as many of them because we have such good communication now.
When can we start talking about power and myth? What?
All right.
Tia Nina in there. She claims she's so okay. So then we wanted to go into character development, and now the
Yeah,
characters that I mean, there's so many characters. I mean, even the Millennium Falcon is a character, right?
absolutely is.
But we have Princess Leia, R2, C3PO, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Darth Vader, Chewbacca, Han Solo, Grand Moff Tarkin, and Luke Skywalker. Those are the major characters that are really fleshed out in this particular um, movie. And
Yeah.
uh, so I don't know what order you want to take them, but I
Okay.
put them in that order because I thought it was kind of most logical to talk about them. And like you talked about, Vader was the muscle, right?
Yeah.
Princess Leia is actually a kind of a twist on a trope of the damsel in distress, where she
Yes.
actually can fight, which is really cool. And
That was kind of a way to tilt the archetype on its head.
yes, and for everyone who says we need more women in movies and powerful women in movies, you don't have to do it in a way that it's so on the nose, right?
Right.
You know, well, we need women in Ghostbusters. Well, we'll remake Ghostbusters and have it all women, and just because
Mhm.
women are cool. That's not the way to do it. Princess Leia is the way to do it. You take a trope and you turn it on its head. She's a powerful woman. Or even
Mhm.
think of what's her name in Shrek? You know, she's not the she starts off kind of the damsel in distress, but she can, you know, kind of kick ass, and she has a mind of her own. That's the
Mhm.
way to do it. It's to take those archetypes and twist them a little bit if you really want to do this. And this was in 1977.
Yeah.
So that's all
So
I wanted
there
to really say about Princess Leia.
Yeah, I mean, Princess Leia really paved the way for a lot of I would say, much more well balanced uh, female characters that came forward. Everybody likes to talk about the strong female character, but they can't even define it most times. Seriously, every time that somebody wants to talk about a strong female character, my first three go tos are Princess Leia, Sarah Connor, and Ellen Ripley. I mean, come
Yeah.
on.
Well, and well, two of those are in the 70s, right?
79 was Alien. Sarah
Yeah.
Connor, that was 84, and
Yeah.
and 91.
I mean, yeah. So yeah, two of those are in the 70s, and I mean, but we've been doing this for a while. The idea that we don't have strong women in film for, you know, the last several years is just nonsense.
Yeah.
But I really like that. And you know, there's like you said, that George Lucas took the idea of these old sort of westerns and these old Japanese serials and movies and things like that. R2D2 and C3PO. At first, I imagined them like a couple of buffoonery comedians, kind of like
Yeah, they're the comic relief. Yes.
they're definitely the comic relief. But I was thinking more of Abbott and Costello kind of comedy relief.
Yep.
But they're really there's a Japanese film where
Hidden Fortress by Akira
Hidden
Kurosawa.
Fortress. Yes, the two there's the two peasants. They're the two peasants, and
Yep.
and they get into their shenanigans, and the story is carried on around them. And if you think
Yep.
about this movie, you know, we start off with the space battle, and what's the first like character we see? It's C3PO and R2D2.
Mhm.
This story surrounds them.
Yep.
They're the bumbling fools that the rest of the story goes around. And so that was kind of a nice way to start this off. We don't see our hero, we don't see the damsel in distress. We have these two peasants, you know, for lack of a better term, they're peasants, right? I mean,
Yeah.
short of another word that I probably shouldn't say on YouTube. But you know, that's what they are. And this whole saga carries on around them. And you get that in later episodes when C3PO is talking about some of the things that he's gotten into. So, but they are perfect characters. Princess Leia is a perfect character in this movie. R2D2 and C3PO are perfect characters. None of them really have story arcs though. Even Obi-Wan Kenobi though is in this movie a perfect character.
Yep.
He was
He's the
played
wise old
perfectly.
sage.
Yep, he's the wise old sage. Darth Vader is just super menacing.
Yep.
Chewbacca's the best kind of sidekick. Han Solo. Okay, we got to talk about Han Solo.
Yep. Oh yeah, we got to talk Han Solo. I mean, how can you not talk about Han Solo with this movie?
He is a space cowboy. He is an outlaw. He doesn't give a. We're only 26 minutes in.
I don't care,
He
man.
shot
I'm
first.
not technically monetized.
Oh, okay. He shot first. He's the only one who shot because he doesn't
Yep.
give a fuck. Because he's an outlaw. He doesn't
He's the
care.
thief with a heart of gold. Yep.
And if you don't know what we're talking about, there's a scene in this movie in a bar where Han Solo
Yep.
has just made a deal with Obi-Wan to transport him and Luke and the droids to Alderaan.
You want me to take
And as
this
he's
one?
getting up, Guido, essentially a bounty hunter, sits down and is threatening him, saying he's got a gun on him, and he's saying, "Hey, I'm taking you in because there's essentially a bounty out on you by this mafia guy."
Uskanunda
And
Solo?
yeah,
I actually know the line.
do you know the new line?
No, I remember they changed it.
McClunky.
Oh, geez.
Anyway, so in the original movie, Han Solo draws his gun quietly under the table and shoots the guy dead, which is a great scene. It's perfect for his character because he doesn't care. He's ruthless. But then with the edits and the re-releases and all this stuff, they changed it
Yep.
so that Guido fires, and then Guido fires first, and then Guido
Yeah,
clunky and then fires, and Han, it's just nonsense. He shot.
Yeah.
He's the only one who shot.
And I love how they, Greedo is sitting there. He's got him dead to rights. And then Han you see him flinch his neck so hard to one side that it's like, the first time I saw it, I cringed because I thought it would snap his neck.
So what they did is they tried to make it like Guido shot first at point blank range and missed because Han Solo was able to literally shift his neck on his shoulders about 6 inches and dodge the bullet or the blaster.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't make sense. Guido didn't shoot.
Absolutely terrible.
Yeah. So anyways, we got to talk about it. But Han Solo is ruthless. He's out for the money. He's got a bounty on his head. They offer him a ton of money and he was like, sure. And that's why at the end, when we were doing the plot summary, he took his money and took off. Now, he has a little bit of a character arc where he realizes he likes these guys and comes back and helps them towards the end. But it's not much of a character arc. You don't get much of a character arc in there. He is just essentially the cowboy.
Yeah, his character evolves more.
Yeah.
Hokey religions and ancient weapons are no match for a good blaster at your side, kid. Yep, and
that's
is
the
exact
quote.
That is the exact quote. Excellent work, Bobby.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love the fact that he's sitting there at that table, and then of course he gets up. Greedo comes up to him, puts the gun on him, and then gets him to sit back down. And you just have that slow, as he's talking, you watch the scene where he his hand goes down, pops the latch on his holster, and he's just sitting there. And it's the Greedo says something to the effect of, I've been looking forward to this for a long time.
I'm going to take you into Jabba, and Han says, over my dead body, and Guido says, that's the idea. And then
and then he
says,
shoots. Well, actually, the line that he says is, I've been looking forward to this for a long time. And then Han's just like, I bet you have. And then suddenly, blam, shoots him right in the face. And I love this next part because this part really, truly explains his character so much better. He shoots Greedo in the face. Greedo's head drops steaming, and you can hear it sizzling to the table. He gets up, holsters his DL-44, clips the thing back, and as he's walking away, he just looks at the bartender, goes, "Sorry about the mess," throws him a coin, and just keeps walking.
Perfect. It's the man in the black hat in every Western, or it's your hero who's wearing a black hat at the moment. It's it's the outlaw Josie Wales. It's all those guys you love in those Westerns. That was him.
Yep.
And it was true His character is perfect in this as well. When he's fumbling around with the ship and he's trying to be all cocky, when
Hmm.
when he tells Luke about I don't even see the exact quote. Hokey religions and ancient weapons are no match for a good blaster at your side, kid.
Yeah, he's openly mocking his belief in the Force.
Yeah. And yeah, so just a perfect character. I wanted to be Han. I didn't want to be Luke. I wanted to
Yeah,
be Han Solo always. So then we
yeah,
have Grand Moff Tarkin is the other major character that I identified. I know the Emperor makes an appearance, but it's so short. It's not really a character. It's just
yeah. You can't even really call it anything in that one.
yeah. But Grand Moff Tarkin is a great ultimate sort of bad guy, the ruthless guy. He's the one that tortures Leia to get the location of the rebel base. He's the one that orders the destruction of her home world, Alderaan, without a flinch. He is the perfect quintessential, bad guy. Just the one who runs the criminal enterprise and organization. He's ruthless. He's cold. He makes no apologies for it. He's absolutely perfect. Unlike Vader, which you'll see in later films, even before the
Yep,
prequels, who's very emotional. He's
yep.
very emotionally wrapped up in everything. If somebody disobeys his orders, he's emotionally affected. And you see that even during the original trilogy. You don't have to go back to the prequels or anything for that. Uh,
Yep.
but Tarkin is 100% just cold as ice. And then
He is a military strategist. He
Mhm.
believes everything that he says, and he knows that he doesn't have to be challenged.
Right.
And so he's like, I don't care. He's got that mentality.
Well, you
Um,
notice nobody challenges him. I mean,
right.
Vader doesn't even challenge him. When Vader's choking the other commander and Tarkin tells him to stop, he stops.
Yeah,
And he goes and sits down in his corner.
everybody else in that room is afraid of Vader, but nobody, the only person in that room that Vader's afraid of is Tarkin, which again, that's just kind of that was just a holdover from the original script concept of the
Yeah.
movie, and
But I
was later
remember as a
revised.
kid,
Yeah.
Vader was in charge. Vader was in control of everything. You saw the Emperor for a minute, but Vader was the one in charge. And then as I got older and I rewatched him, I was like, well, wait a minute now. Vader's kind of cowering to Tarkin. That's interesting. And I
Yeah.
didn't really catch that as a kid when I was watching it. But you kind of pick up on that now. And that's one of the reasons why, not to get on a tangent, I like Rogue One so much is because it
Hmm.
develops Tarkin a lot more.
Yeah. And actually, if you want to mention Rogue One and Peter Cushing and Tarkin, I can mention that thing I mentioned earlier. So this is funny. You'll love this. So the facial scan that they used in Rogue One to deep fake Peter Cushing, or basically his face onto the actor.
Yeah.
You have to go back to another movie. It was a comedy from the 80s called Top Secret. It was the star vehicle, the very first introduction to Val Kilmer. And it was a Zucker Brothers knockoff of a World War II espionage spy film. And
Is that what they got all the scans from? How was his face?
yeah, so in the movie, Top Secret, there's a scene where they go to the Swedish bookshop, which is kind of like a place where like the rebels and the Swedish resistance meet. And what's funny about it is that
Wait, Swedish resistance in World War II?
just
Okay, all
look,
right.
just it's the movie. So yeah, they go to a Swedish. Oh, sorry, they go. It's sorry, French resistance, but they go to a Swedish bookstore. It's
Oh,
the
okay.
movie.
All right. All right. All right.
Anyway, so they go into this bookshop, and it's just like, oh, there's Peter Cushing, and he's holding up this big magnifying glass and looking at this book, and so his eye is like really huge. That you can see the one eye is just really huge. And then as they walk up to the counter, suddenly he lowers the magnifying glass, and he's just got this really huge eye. And they do several like visual size gags
I'm
in
gonna
that
have to
movie,
watch this
but
movie.
oh, it's so funny. If you like Airplane, it was actually movie that I think that they did right after Airplane. It was the same guys, the Zucker brothers.
Okay.
Crap, what was the name? Jeff Zucker, yeah, was also in that one. So they filmed came together and became Zaz Films, which produced Airplane, Top Secret, the Naked Gun movies, and if you can believe it, Jeff Zucker actually did a lot of writing for Scary Movie 2, but all of his stuff was related to the plot, and it got cut from the movie.
Yeah. It happens, I suppose.
Anyway, so let me finish
I
this
didn't know
up.
they got all that from that.
Yeah, so to do the prosthetic for the giant eye, they had to do a full plaster cast of Peter Cushing's face. And somehow, after that movie wrapped, and this is only a few years after Star Wars, so I mean, it's very close. Apparently, this mold just got stuck in a box somewhere, and it was in a studio warehouse in Great Britain until later on. It was whenever people were doing work on Rogue One, somebody found it and knew that they were trying to figure out how to deep fake Peter Cushing, and they said, "Hey, could you use this?"
Well, yeah.
And yeah, you literally have a plaster cast, a 3D rendering model of his exact face, only a few years after A New Hope.
That's amazing. I didn't know that.
Yep.
That's how lucky is that?
It is a
otherwise
one in
he'd
a
probably
million
turn out
thing.
looking like Tom Hanks from the Polar Express, right?
Trust me,
I kind of see it. I hear the voice and I see it.
They still have some very big uncanny valley problems with Rogue One, but I mean, still.
I can watch a cartoon and enjoy it and get emotionally invested in the story and love the story. I can do it with, we're people, right? We can pick up a pencil and, get emotionally attached to it and break it, and we get all upset, right? That's just what we are as humans. As long as you don't dig too deep, right? Take it for what it is. Take it for what it is. We know it's CGI, right?
Sorry.
Well, we know the whole damn thing is make believe, right? Let's just take it for what it is. And so that's why I don't get caught up too much in the bad CGI. Sometimes I'm really impressed with what they've got going on. Like when I first saw Rogue One, and I was like, "Oh my god, that's him. That's awesome."
Yeah.
And then I start watching the movie again and getting back to the story and the character development and all that. It's the same thing with Leia in Rogue One, because they have Carrie Fisher as young Leia in that movie, which came out 5 years ago, right? And so again, is it perfect? No, it's not her from 1977, so it's not perfect, but it's still cool to tie all that in.
So my experience from whenever I used to do, I did a lot of work kind of getting into CGI like early on. I basically found that it was not enjoyable.
A good example of sort of a good job gone wrong for a different reason is the new Indiana Jones movie.
Yes.
When Indiana is younger at the beginning of the movie, it looks pretty good. I can get behind that until he talks. And then you hear old Harrison Ford. They should have fixed his voice as well as fixed his face. And that would have been a lot better.
Well, you know why they didn't do what they did, because they already had the technology to fix his voice like what they did with Darth Vader. Now, because if you remember Rogue One, Vader's voice was old. James Earl Jones. And what ended up happening was that after that, they were like, "Hey, we need to like fix that because it just doesn't sound right," and he just literally sounds old. Mm-hmm. So what ended up happening was they essentially approached James Earl Jones with the rights to the voice of Darth Vader, and they made him sell the rights to the voice of Darth Vader. and then they could actually run it through all their AI and whatnot. So all from now on, like the new Vader series and everything, anytime you hear Darth Vader's voice, it sounds much more like Empire Strikes Back, but it's all
Yeah.
AI generated.
It was in Obi-Wan. It was in, I'm trying to think of what else he's been in lately, but definitely in I know it was
In Obi-Wan,
computer
yeah.
generated essentially in Obi-Wan, this series.
Yeah.
But it's I'm trying to think. Do they have no, it's not in Ahsoka. He's not. I mean, Vader might make an appearance or two in Ahsoka, but I don't think he's talking much. It's usually Aiden Christensen.
No, they kind of just do like a couple little fake outs where it's like you see his
I think you hear
silhouette
the breath.
imposed, and you
Yeah,
hear
and you
that
hear the breath.
once.
You hear the so yeah, but that's interesting. But I do like I did like the way they de-aged him for Rogue One, and as
Yeah.
well as Carrie Fisher. But this movie is essentially it's Luke's journey, right? It's Luke
Yeah.
Skywalker's journey. And this do you have the hero's journey map up? Because I don't know if a lot of
Yes,
people
actually,
know
I
the
do.
hero's journey. So there is
Let
a
me.
classic
Yeah.
storyline arc. It goes back to like ancient Greek, and it's called the hero's journey. And it's essentially a story arc, and it's represented by a graphic that hopefully Kaiser can pull up.
I'm working on it.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there's this
Here we go.
there's as many as 17 stages in the hero's journey, but you can really kind of break it down to 3 stages, which is the departure, sometimes also the separation, like somebody exists in a world and then they depart from that world for whatever reason. In this particular case, it was Luke Skywalker leaving Tatooine because his aunt and uncle were killed, and he's sort of got a calling at that point.
Yeah, the call
Then
to
there's
adventure.
yeah, call to adventure. Then there's the initiation, which could have many stages too. But so he essentially he goes on this adventure and learns some things, and then there's the return, and he's returned now a changed person, right? And so
Yeah.
those are the 3 major sort of big
Yeah.
picture scopes of this the hero's journey. And obviously you can see here that this one has 12. There's others with 17. I think the one
Right.
that I had like 9.
Yeah,
So
I've
we have
got
the
got
call
that
to
one over here
adventure.
as well.
Yeah, so you have the call to adventure, you have the challenge and temptations, you have the transformation. Oh, after they reach the abyss, like the lowest level, then they have the transformation, and then they have the return home, kind of a changed person. Again, there's a ton of different variants of this. You can kind of interject as many as you want. But Luke's hero journey is essentially this.
Mhm.
In this movie, but then also in the greater scheme of the 3 original movies. So in this particular movie,
If I might,
yeah,
real quick about the rule of
yeah,
threes with this. So each of the movies is divided up into what's called a rule of threes. So there is 3 stages to each movie. There is, the first act, second act, third act. You have the introduction, the drama, and then the resolution. But what's interesting is that if you look at the larger scope of the hero's journey, there's the same beats repeated in the overall story arc. So you have the departure, the initiation, the return, each of those. So you have, that's why the trilogy concept works so well. Because if you stick to a 3-act dramatic structure in every movie, but then you also make a trilogy in a 3-act dramatic structure, it works.
yeah.
It's a
So if you
psychological thing.
Yeah, it's and who knows why it works, but in this
Right.
particular movie, so your first act is where you meet Luke on Tatooine. He's callow youth. He's dreaming of adventure. He's dreaming of escaping this backwater setting. And I guess I didn't separate this out. Didn't
Oh,
edit
cool.
my thing very well.
I didn't know that,
Anyway,
Valhalla.
so he's kind of stuck in this rut, right? He's stuck in this
Mm-hmm.
rut. He's just kind of a dumb kid. Then he gets this call to adventure. This call to adventure comes in a couple of parts. These droids show up, and there's this message. And he meets. There's in these stories too. There's always like the helpful wizard of some sort, or someone with knowledge. It could be, an elderly person. If you think of the Matrix, it's what's his name?
Neo,
Neo, not Neo. Neo's the main
uh,
character.
Morpheus.
Morpheus, yes, it's Morpheus. There's always somebody with more knowledge than your main character, than your hero, that comes
Yep.
and helps and guides him,
The
right?
mentor,
And
yeah, the
the
sage, or
yeah.
whatever they call him.
hmm So then Luke takes advantage of this opportunity and he leaves that situation that he's in. Now,
The
during
comfort
the
of
course of
home. Yeah.
he leaves his home. And during the course of this, he's taught the ways of the Force. He a little bit. He learns the lightsaber. He learns more about his father.
Hmm.
He becomes friends with Han Solo and Chewbacca. He watches Ben sacrifice himself, and that sort of transforms him. Then he still has the same urges, right? It's his goal in this film is adventure. He's still getting that adventure. He still wants to go out there. He wants to be part of the Rebel Alliance. He gets all excited when he hears about people being parts of the Rebel Alliance, and so he participates in that. And this is the start of his journey. But
Yep.
he returns a hero, right? At the end of the movie, he returns a hero. So this is sort of a small little hero's journey contained within this. There's the 3-act part. And
Yep.
then, but if you look at all three of them together, Return of the Jedi is definitely the abyss, the bottom of this circle, where we're at the lowest. He's, not to try to get ahead of ourselves, but he's Luke or Han has been frozen. They have lost the battle against Darth Vader. He got his hand cut off, right? He's at the abyss. And then in Return of the Jedi, literally return right there. It's
Yep.
in
He's
the
at the
circle.
start of the third act. Yeah, the start of
Yeah.
the pretty much at the start of the rising action toward the resolution.
Yes, exactly. And so his arc throughout the movies individually, but also within the 3 original trilogy, is a perfect example of this hero's journey. I mean, even if you look at Empire Strikes Back, right?
Right.
He's starting off. He's on Hoth. They have a little battle. Then he's got to go meet another wizard that helps him, through again. And he learns the fate of his father more detail. And then he doesn't quite make the return, but he's getting close.
Right.
Well, he does make the return. He goes back to his friends. So I guess he
Yep.
does make somewhat of a return. It's just kind of
Yep.
disastrous.
Right. You're more or less getting to a place where you can lick your wounds, as opposed, it's better than it was, but it's not much. And something that I see that Tia Nina mentioned, but Luke had to be pushed into that journey, though. Well, that's kind of the thing with most characters who are involved in, or pretty much all characters who are involved in this type of story structure. So with Frodo, you have the approaching of the Nazgul. You have with Neo, you have them suddenly catching on to him and his kind of catharsis that he's different from the rest of the world, and that suddenly the Matrix starts coming after him. And then, of course, with Luke, you have the deaths of Owen and Beru Lars. His entire home, everything he knows, is burned to the ground. He literally has nothing left. And his only real connection to anything left in the world is the best friend of his dad and the guy who wants to teach him about who his father really was. It's a connection back to a familial root.
Another thing that makes characters in their storylines very compelling is and Han Solo is a perfect kind of example of this. He doesn't really have the hero's journey, but he has a good character arc in this movie alone. When a character has a goal, whether it's a flawed goal or not, and they and in pursuit of that goal, they realize that their goal is probably something that they shouldn't be going for, and in fact they make a psychological change to achieve something greater than their original goal. That's a great story arc as well for a character. It's not the hero's journey, but it's another great story arc. And Han Solo has that in this movie, where he's out for money. He wants money to pay off Jabba Hutt. But instead, throughout the course of this, he realizes that money, that original goal of his, is not really what's important. What's important is helping out your friends. And so he changes that, his goal halfway through the movie or towards the end of the movie, and it's now achieved a much greater goal. And so that's what makes Han Solo so compelling. You could say the same thing about Luke Skywalker to some extent, because talking about he was forced, he wanted adventure, right? He just didn't want to
Right.
be on there. He didn't know his father was a Jedi Knight at any point. He thought, whatever. I can't remember exactly what his uncle told him about his father, but he didn't
He
know
told him
that
that he
at the
was a
beginning.
navigator on a spice freighter.
Yeah, that's right. So he just wanted adventure. He just wanted to get off the planet. And he did that. He saw the opportunity to do that. So he wasn't really pushed. He was just given the opportunity, really. And then he kind of went off on his goal was to get off the planet and go seek adventure. And he did seek the adventure, but he also, got wind of something maybe a little bit bigger than his original goal. So even if it's not a true hero's journey in just that movie, it is a well-developed character arc.
Yep, I agree
Navigator
there.
on a space freighter. I see that. Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
spice freighter. Yeah, because
So
even back then they started with the whole like spice being like this trade good, although we later find out that it's drugs.
yeah. It was just so innocent. He was a navigator on a spice freighter. What's spice, Daddy?
And then we later find out, oh yeah, it's basically cocaine in space.
It's like the worst kind of drug. Uh, but yeah. So anyway, so that's all I have. I don't know what else you wanted to talk about with the characters, but that's about all my notes.
Yeah. So with the characters specifically, I mean,
do we want to jump to acting?
Well,
I didn't know where you were going with it.
Yeah, let me hit a couple of things here. So, yeah, I do with regard to, I would say, because Chewbacca does have a character archetype in this, so there is kind of like, if you especially look at like the old like the Robin Hood stories and whatnot, and they say there's the character of the strong man who is kind of the cohort of one of the basically the thief in that character.
Yeah.
So he's basically the Little John of that. But I really think that it's because Chewie doesn't have much of an arc, but he's definitely like this, just kind of like he's there, but he's just got this presence. And God bless Peter Mayhew for bringing that to the screen. That he's a little bit of a bumbling sidekick, but Chewie actually he knows what he's doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you get the sense he's sort of the protector. He's like, I'm trying to think of another analogous character. He's kind of like the butler when you have the child running around the castle kind of thing. Yep. He's the butler. He kind of keeps everyone in line, but knows how everything works. He doesn't really have a character arc at all. We don't. But
he is definitely an important character.
He is an important character, and I'm just trying to think of how we would identify him. But he is, and he shouldn't be overlooked. He is an important character. He got shafted in the award ceremony for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Chewie should have gotten an award too.
Yeah. But no, he is like the best kind. He's like the Jamie to the MLS. MLS streams would not be the same if it wasn't for Jamie, who says the right things at the right moment, who laughs the right way at the right moment. It's just, it fills in those perfect little spots to hit an emphasis where it's needed. Yeah. So there we go. I don't know how else to say that other than Jamie is my Chewbacca. That works. And occasionally I loan her out to Baker.
All right. Let's see. Yeah. Do we want to go to, like you said, do you want to go to acting, or do you want,
I did want to, we could go to acting. we can go to acting. I think that's probably most appropriate to talk about after we talk about the characters.
Right.
So these are my notes on the acting. Almost every actor in this movie, especially the main characters, um, were fairly new to acting. Han
Hmm.
Solo, or not Han Solo, Harrison Ford, he had a couple of things, but he was fairly new.
He was
Um,
actually a carpenter. He wasn't even in the script, and they recast
he
him.
was brought. He was a carpenter working, and he was brought in to read some lines off of other people, and
Yep.
Luke just liked the way he performed. But he was also cast and filmed in Luke's or George Lucas's prior movie, um,
Yep. American Graffiti, or was
American
it
Graffiti. So
THX?
he no American Graffiti. He was in American
Okay.
Graffiti. So he was an actor prior to that,
Yeah.
and he was actually in George Lucas's film. But I think he also did carpentry on the side, and George Lucas was like, "Oh, I need some cabinets," and Harrison was like, "Sure, I'll build you whatever it was he was working on." And hey, would you mind reading some lines because I know you're an actor and you can help us do this? And he said, "You know what? I you're just like perfect. You got this tone and everything, and it just fits."
Yep.
So that's how he ended up getting the job for as Han Solo. But uh the acting, Carrie Fisher, I mean, she's an acting family, both of her parents are famous and all this stuff.
Hmm.
She does a good job. I Mark Hamill, however, uh, Mark Hamill is new. He doesn't know how to not look like he's acting at times,
Right.
especially when he's talking with his aunt and uncle. It's like, oh, but I wanted to go into whatever, and I can't remember the town, and pick up some power converters with
I
my.
want to go to Tashi Station to pick up some power converters. He just got that whiny 16-year-old kind of tone, which is
Yeah,
exactly what his character's supposed to be, which is chef's kiss.
it is. Well, I guess. See, I never pictured him as 16 in my mind, and I know he's supposed to be like 16 or 17 or something. He's pretty young.
Yeah.
But I never pictured him as that. I always pictured him in his sort of his early 20s, like
Yeah.
2021. And
Well, that's how
so,
old Mark Hamill was at the time.
right, right. But and then some of the another scene that stands out is when Harrison Ford is sort of picking on him about training with the lightsaber and all that
Yep.
stuff, and say, "Well, you don't believe in the Force." Just some of the delivery of some of it is when he's trying to be,
Hmm. Kid, I've been from
I
one
don't know,
side
when
of this
he's
galaxy to the other, and I've seen a lot of strange things. There's no all powerful force that's controlling my destiny.
yeah, but Mark Hamill's deliveries on a
Yep.
couple of lines are just a little too like overacted a little bit.
Yeah.
I will say that. And the reason why I bring it up is because there's a lot of criticism of Hayden Christensen.
Yes.
Well, he's way worse than Mark Hamill. I always say Mark Hamill is 1,000 times better of an actor in 1977 than Hayden Christensen was in the early 2000s, late 90s. But um, that's a critique that Hayden got
Yeah.
in those in episode 3 or 2 and 3. Uh, but it was kind of there a little bit with Luke. He was kind of a whiny kid. He was kind of overacted a little bit. He couldn't really sell the drama. Now, I will say in later films, when you get to especially Return of the Jedi, he was able to pull off more of the dramatic scenes, but
Yes.
not in Star Wars. In Star Wars, he wasn't able to pull that off for me.
And I think that actually goes to the film's credit because from 1977 to 1983, I mean that's like how many years gap? I mean that's you know
Was it
anyway
83? Yeah, yeah, okay, yeah. So
yeah
6 years.
so yeah
And
that's
he did a
that's
couple
enough
other
time.
movies in between.
So he went through a lot in that time frame, and then of course he's starting out as this young idealistic kid, in the original Star Wars, and then he starts kind of to learn the ways of the Force in the second one. He's starting to kind of like grow as a mature a little bit, but he's still just kind of a snot-nosed punk, and he gets his shit wrecked. And then after through that, he learns, okay, I need to reevaluate. I need to change what I'm doing. And he goes and trains for however long it is. I mean, there's varying kind of degrees on that one. And tries to learn more about the Force in between Empire and Jedi. And then whenever we see him next, he's very nearly completed his Jedi training. And you've just seen such a very big difference in the maturation of his character between those movies.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
Yep.
But that's the only criticism I had regarding the acting.
Yeah.
Because everyone else was really spot on. I noticed some things with Mark Hamill, and I know he was new to all of this, and the only reason I bring it up is as we go through this, I have a feeling we're going to be making some comparisons, especially when we get to the prequels.
Oh yeah.
So we could look back at this. So our next category is cinematography.
Okay. Yep.
So analyzing the visual styles, the lighting and things like that.
Yep.
That is what made this movie.
Oh yeah.
The special effects you could see it in the thumbnail, the dual moons, that scene where Luke is standing there on Tatooine.
Yeah.
George Lucas knows how to set up a scene.
Yeah. I cannot remember how the visual effect was done for the two suns, but it is freaking seamless.
It is,
for the time period. And it's so perfectly done. And I mean, on location shooting, oh yeah.
They hold up. That's what I want to say too.
Yeah. The
special effects hold up. I mean, yes, there's some issues with some stop motion stuff in some later films, but this film alone, the special effects, the original cut, we're not talking about the remastered special editions, extra shots, throwing in new digitally
the 1977 theatrical cut. Yes,
it holds up. It really does. And again, this was the launch of ILM. This was that's what made Star Wars a phenomenon. Was its cinematography and the effects that went along with that, along with a bunch of other stuff that we're going to talk about. But that was one of the big things.
Yes. So with regard to the shooting, so shooting on location, as any director will tell you, and full disclosure, I have been on a couple of movie sets. I actually helped film a pilot whenever I lived in Chicago a long time ago, and I will tell you, on location shooting is an absolute pain in the ass.
I'm in a movie. If you guys, maybe I'll tell you about it sometime. It was filmed in Detroit at the Old Tiger Stadium after they moved. But it was long days, and I'll talk about it at one point. But it was a giant pain in the ass.
Yeah, it really, really is. And so I mean, going to shoot all of the scenes that they did in Tunisia, which I mean looks amazing in this movie. I mean, it looks like a completely alien world, just this desert planet, and it's really good. So I have to give it to George on this. I mean, with the work that he put into doing the on location shooting is just really impressive. And then when they go into the sound stages and whatnot to actually do a lot of the interior shots when they're going through the Death Star, we'll get into the prop design and some of the other things like that, but the prop design is just absolutely amazing. The prop design is really where my bread and butter is, because I love a lot of that stuff.
He developed the first computer controlled in 1977. First computer controlled camera rig so that you could repeat the shots in the exact same location over the models, especially for the Death Star trench run and things like that, or scraping along the Star Destroyers and stuff. He had to create a whole company and develop all of this. So this was in his mind when he started pre-production on this movie. And
Dykstra.
I feel like it was kind of a labor of love. Was that
the computer shooting that they it's called Dykstra Flex, DYKSTRAFLEX. And I had a clip that kind of explains it.
I'm gonna put something in the chat while you're looking for that too.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I'm trying to find that one.
Let's see. Oh God, I hate Bing. Can I just say that, for all of Google's faults, I know it's a giant
Yeah.
whatever. It's a giant monopoly and everybody hates it and they control everything.
Right.
But it is so much better at finding stuff. Oh, there we go. Okay. Wait.
So I found a
Okay.
couple
Yeah, there
of
it
like
is.
videos on it, but unfortunately they've laid music over it and they've gotten rid of the what do you call that? They got rid of the actual like dialogue that was supposed to be over it. Did I save
that's
that?
not good. Okay, I'm gonna drop a link here, guys. So this is Project for was it
Yeah.
4K77? Is that the one?
Yeah, Project 4K77. Yes.
Yeah, Project 4K77. I just dropped the link in there. These guys, this is a fan-made film. It's free to download. They took an original print from 1977 and scanned it in 4K and with the audio and everything. So I saw Chris in there saying you have the original on VHS tape.
Yep,
This is
I
the
do.
original the way it was seen in theaters. And
Yes.
if you guys like it, if you like Star Wars, I highly recommend you watch it, this version of it. And if you're too young to remember before they made all the edits and stuff in the 90s, check it out and see how you think of the original and see how you think it holds up.
I found
The
it.
special effects, because it really does hold up.
Okay, here we go. I found it.
My mom and dad have it on beta. My dad just got rid of his Betamax.
That's an old school.
Yeah.
He created a computer-operated motion camera system called the Dijkstra Flex. The system allowed for elaborate camera movements that could be intricately planned, such as panning, tilting, and pushing in. The team would place the model in front of a blue screen and then move the camera around it. When the blue screen
Before
was
they realized
removed
blue was bad.
and the space background was
Yep.
added, the ship would appear to execute quick and complicated movements. A major benefit of shooting this way was how the photography captured realistic movement.
During exposure, things move. Traditional stop-motion photography takes a series of sharp stills. In other words, the object doesn't move during exposure.
I'm going to put a better link
If you
in for you
take
guys.
photography,
Okay.
real-life photography, the subject is in motion the entire time. Then you get a blur behind it.
Because the team could now film the ships in real time, the camera could capture the motion blur in each frame.
Yep. Oops. Sorry. It played through a part of my playlist there. I have an entire thing for just live stream videos. So got a surprise cameo by Lorraine Warren.
I wasn't even looking. I was looking at Project 4K77. I was just amazed by the quality of it. And
Isn't it amazing?
we don't need Disney to release an original cut. With 4K77, it's free. I mean, it takes a lot of hard drive space to download, but
yes.
But I mean, download it, burn it onto a DVD or a Blu-ray, and call it a day. It is it's amazing quality.
For what just so everybody knows exactly what we're talking about here, so there is a website here called the Star Wars Trilogy.com, Project 4K77. I will be sure to drop a link in the description. It is amazing. So essentially what they've done here is they took the original cut of Star Wars, the original 35 millimeter film print
from 1977.
Yes. And one of the things that they did, because what a lot of people don't know is that actual 35 millimeter film, the resolution measurement is up to or between about 6.5 to between about 6 to 6.5K. of resolution. If you really kind of break it down to that type of basic resolution math, there's a lot of actual visual information that's stored on a 35 millimeter frame. So what they did was they just took the original 35 millimeter film and they scanned it in at 4K native. They didn't they scan it in at 1080p and then upscale it. They didn't take it up at 1 and drop it down. No, it is native
with the most
4K.
resolution they can. Yeah, native 4K. And they also adjusted it a touch. You can see here. So that's the Blu-ray on the left. They did a lot of manipulation with the Blu-ray. They darkened it and they changed the color. They added a lot of blue in the Blu-ray. Now that I feel like is a little over dramatic, although I am looking at a yellow visor. It's not quite that different, but there's like blue everywhere in the Blu-ray version. And in the 1997 release, it's not so blue, but it's not high quality, and they have a lot of the edits. So if you want it how it looked in the theaters, without all the special the special edition effects and things like that, and blue tinting and everything else, this is the version you want, and it's free online, guys. You could donate to the project, but it's free online. Don't pay for it. If someone asks you, if someone's saying, oh, pay for it and you can get a download, it's a scam. Don't do that. This is available for free.
Yep, this is absolutely available for free.
But something like 80 gigs, right?
Oh yeah, I remember when I found this, I showed it to you. It was like, I was like, beware. This thing's huge. The file size on this is ridiculous. It's about 80 gigs per movie. And so you have Project 4K 77, you have Project 4K 80, which is Empire Strikes Back, and then you have Project 4K 83, which is Return of the Jedi.
Yep.
So
they're all on that page, that link that I dropped. The second one, not the first one. Ignore the first one. I mean, you can. Awesome. It'll eventually get you there, but anyway, so it all holds up. It's great. This is a labor of love these guys went through. I watched a video on how long it took them, and
it's amazing.
Well, what was the first one that came out?
The first one that they, the first one that they did.
No, the other guy that tried to remaster these.
Oh, Harmies. Yeah.
Harmies. Yeah. He took, excited, you might like this. He took and outlined and cut out all of the, especially when the special editions redid the backgrounds and stuff and space looked different. He went through and outlined every little freaking detail about everything and removed it and put in the original background. It took him thousands of hours to do it.
Yeah. And that was for a 720p copy of the original trilogy. Imagine how much more they had to do this in 4K.
Yeah. Well, they didn't have to do that as much because they literally just scanned what was already there on the print.
Right.
Now, they did do 97% of it is from one print, and then they filled in with some other stuff.
Oops, sorry, wrong button. My bad. Sorry. I was trying to take the main screen off of there, and I hit you by accident. Sorry.
Oh, no worries. I was just gonna say they did have to do some work with the other parts, but a lot of this is just straight 4K scan, which is amazing.
Yep, excited. So that's called deep etching. Yep.
There was a documentary I watched on the making of 4K 77, and
it's wild, isn't it?
Or not 4K 77, but the other one. And then they were
Harmies.
4K. Harmies compared to 4K 77. They were talking about how much time Harmy took to, I guess, do deep etching. It was just hours and hours and hours. Labor of love there.
Yes, and it looks great.
But that's what got everybody mesmerized. Like before this, we had 2000: A Space Odyssey. We had what's his name? Flash Gordon. We had other science fiction stuff, but this is the one. It looked realistic. The special effects were awesome. Each character was perfect. The story arcs were perfect. We had the right characters doing the right things at the moment, and it was transformative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of sci-fi of the time before Star Wars was definitely much more I guess you could say stodgy. It was a bit more of like the thinking man's type of stuff. It aired more on the science fiction side. So I mean, if you remember, like, so the original series of Star Trek definitely kind of really changed. Before Star Wars, the original series of Star Trek really kind of defined defined science fiction. And then now I will wholeheartedly say that I put Star Wars and Star Trek into two separate camps. Star Trek is science fiction. Star Wars is space fantasy. They are very different.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. No, they are very different. This
Right.
is not by any means hard sci-fi. I see people on different YouTube channels. I won't mention them, but they try to science Star Wars.
Oh yeah.
You can't
You
science
can't do
Star
it.
Wars. No, it's science fantasy. It's not hard sci-fi or anything like that.
Yeah. It is. Yeah.
But do we want to talk
Chris
about the
Mullins is
sound?
a space opera. Oh yes, I've been waiting for this. I got some.
Are we gonna
I got
get
some
yeeted?
stuff. No, I don't think so, because I mean, I checked on this, but yeah, this is the thing that I like. I mean, besides the prop design, like, this is one of the things that I most wanted to talk about tonight, because I truly believe there is an unsung hero to all of the Star Wars trilogy. There is one man whose name goes widely unmentioned, and I swear to you all, without this man, without what he has done for Star Wars would not be Star Wars. And that man is Ben Burtt, the sound designer for Star Wars. The man who created all of the sound effects and actually took the time and to create, yes, the sound effect. This is the sound effects. Now, don't get me wrong. It is a dynamic duo between him and John Williams, and to make the soundtrack and just the sound design for this entire movie. And there's a great YouTube channel. I don't remember what it is. I didn't think about it until just this moment. I've seen it out there, but they take famous movies and they'll actually like strip the color out of them, so they go black and white, and then they redo the entire sound design. They just put in stock sound effects, and it's kind of the way they do it is to kind of like show you the difference, like how much importance sound is to a film.
It's like when they take the laugh tracks out of the Big Bang Theory.
Yeah, it's just creepy.
Yes.
But yes. Yep.
So, that's interesting. I haven't seen that, but
yeah.
No, the sound is. So like a blaster is from striking a cable.
Yep, a high tension. Yeah.
Darth Vader's voice is from a scuba diving respirator. We have the lightsaber hum is from a electric something or other. I can't remember what it was.
It's there's two sounds layered in there, and I've got a video on it, so that way we can kind of watch. But yeah, it's like a vacuum tube and a projector. So yeah, let me go ahead and just throw that up there on the screen. It's only about 3 minutes, so we'll watch it in its entirety.
While we're doing that, I'm going to take this helmet off because my ears are killing me in this thing.
Go right ahead, buddy. All right, throw that up there on the screen.
Sorry, excited.
That's no moon. It's a space station.
It's too big to be a space station.
The Death Star is a fantastic collection of exotic technologies. And it was a chance in the movie to do things with motors and with weird electronic tones and with loops of sound played backwards through reverb chambers. Because this was a powerful place with all kinds of technology, you could practically justify any kind of interesting sound. And therefore, I had kind of a field day with it. Obviously, there's hundreds of sounds associated with all the scenes that take place in the Death Star. But what would any Star Wars movie be without two of the most principal ones, which are the blasters and the laser swords? The sound of the blasters was discovered by accident. I was on a hike with my family. We passed underneath the guy wires of a radio tower. I bumped against it, and the wire made a twanging sound. And I said, "Oh my gosh, that's a laser gun." And that wire on that particular radio tower became the basis for all the blasters.
Lock the door, kid!
There you go.
The other principal sound for the weapons is, of course, the lightsaber.
Not as clumsy or random as a blaster. An elegant weapon, but a more civilized age.
And the lightsaber, oddly enough, was the first sound I ever made for the Star Wars films. I had an immediate idea about it, even when I saw the artwork on the wall of George's office. I remember when I cut together the first temporary version of the lightsaber fight between Vader and Ben Kenobi. At this point, no one had heard a lightsaber. It certainly, no sound had been put in against picture. And I worked alone for a few days in the editing room, cutting the sounds and mixing them together. And then we had a screening of the movie for the editing crew just to see where we're at. And I sort of sprung this sequence on them with the sounds cut in. I got great reviews. It brought it to life in a way that hadn't existed, because now the swords had energy associated with them, and that energy came through the sounds that were, synchronized with them. And it was a very satisfying feeling. That sound never changed much. It never was challenged by anyone. George seemed satisfied with it right from the start. And I just moved on to the next thing.
All right. So yeah, that is one of the most impressive things about this, with the sound design, is just that every single sound, every single little thing, even the blasters, the lightsabers, everything is a natural occurring sound. It is an organic sound. It is not something synthesized or just kind of created. Look, synthesizers of the time, they were very much in their infancy. And I could totally see them trying to do a more, I guess you could say, a more contemporary sound design. But the fact that Ben Burtt was able to find these things and decided, hey, let's actually use real sounds, like, as the basis for all these.
Well, if they had gone with a synthesized sound, it would have been, again, cheesy, corny, just like
exactly
you see with Star Trek, right? It's kind of cheesy. It's all synthetic. I can't talk.
Synthesized.
Yes, thank you very much. Sound in it, and it's horrible. But and for everyone who's complaining, look at the red marks on my head. This thing is awesome. Well, if you guys can't see it, but it hurts to wear. I apologize. I had to take it off. I'm gonna get a bigger one, I think.
Get some padding to put in there.
Yeah, right. Do I have a tan filter? Excited. Anyways, yeah. So between that and the music, there's a cut. It's hilarious. It's Empire Strikes Back when the Emperor is walking off of his transport ship, and everyone's lined up to see him, and Darth Vader is there, and I think it's one of the first times we hear the Imperial March. If it's not one of the first, it is the first, and they replace it with a love song or something, and no cuts. They just replaced it with Barry White or something, and all of a sudden, the meaning of the scene changes. Right. Yep. So the sound effects combined with the music really bring Star Wars into a whole different level. than you had anything prior to this. It was groundbreaking for its cinematography, but also for its sound effects, its Foley artists, and the music, and all of that combined really made Star Wars something beyond just a normal movie that you would get in 1977.
Yeah, and I mean, because George Lucas was such a rogue filmmaker of the time, I mean, he hated the studio system. He
Mhm.
did not like, being like having to be tied to all of the red tape of Hollywood. That, I mean, he just basically, a lot of this stuff was done non-union, which
Yeah.
was at the time was unheard of.
We also
And
ran into some problems because you didn't put the name of all the actors at the beginning of the film. When you see
yes,
the crawl, he got fined for that, and he just paid it.
yep, the Screen Actors Guild, they had like some kind of like agreement or something that all of like when you're doing the beginning credits, you had to have the names of your actors and all that like in everything.
Well, it's
And
part of
yeah,
because he was a director and he was a member
Mhm.
of the Screen Actors Guild, and as a director and a member, you had to abide by the rules. And one of the rules were, as you see the opening titles of most
Mhm.
movies, they put up the name of the actors, the big name actors, and who the director is, and all this stuff. It's because it's their rule. That they have to do that. And he decided he had a vision, right? He had a vision that you see it in the images, you see it in the sound, you see it in the music, and all of this stuff. And he had a vision, and it didn't include Harrison Ford, Mark Hamill at the beginning, right? That wasn't his vision. And so he went without it. He actually left the Screen Actors Guild because of it.
Right.
And because he was just true to his vision. You guys could say whatever you want about him making his edits and stuff like that. He had his vision and he went with it, and he still went with it until he's eventually sold it to Disney and went home a very rich man.
$4.4 billion richer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So the direction, of this movie is talking about, director's choices and things like that. And we got into that a little bit with the cinematography. He did have a cinematographer. I can't remember his name. But George Lucas was the director as well as the writer and one of the chief producers on this. But the direction of the film didn't really.
Cinematographer was Gilbert Taylor.
Gilbert Taylor. Okay. The direction of the film, in my opinion, didn't matter because at the end of the day, this was 100% editing. This movie was created in the edit room. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of scenes. So if you guys are familiar with the movie, you'll remember a time in the Millennium Falcon where they're running from the TIE fighters and they're shooting at them and they finally kill the last one and hooray, hooray. And then C-3PO is fell down and is covered with wires. Well, that happened. Actually, that was filmed back the opening scene. Or at the final battle, when you see the sort of the ticking clock of the Death Star getting closer and closer to be able to target the Rebel base, that was never there. That was after the fact. In the editing room, they said, we need some sort of ticking clock. We need some sort of emergency going on, something to give this fight more stakes. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of guys attacking a base. It doesn't, there's no, it's not tense enough. And so that was 100% created in
there's
the
no
editing
stakes.
room. Yeah, there's no stakes. Yeah. And so that was 100% created in the editing room. And if you watch it now, having known that, if you didn't know it before, and you watch that part, you notice nobody's talking or it's voiceover. You don't see anybody talking during those scenes. You'll hear people counting down 3 minutes till we're in line with the Rebel base or whatever. And you see sort of some graphics and things like that pop up.
It just every time it ratchets the tension up just a little bit more.
Yeah. So this movie, while it was George Lucas had a vision, he had definitely an eye for how he want this, the film shot. This movie really came together because of the editing, and the editor was George's wife at the time.
Yep, Marcia Lucas.
Well, she had a couple other people working with her, but she was the driving force behind it. The editing.
what's interesting is that the original cut of Star Wars, I mean, was an unmitigated disaster.
Well,
And I mean, it was
I think that's.
it was
I've
primarily
I've heard that argument,
yeah.
but I don't think it was
It's
an unmitigated
boring.
disaster. It's boring. Okay,
It's so boring because a lot of it was filmed. It was just shot through masters, which is the principal camera that the director and the cinematographer use to when they're filming a particular area. So a lot of it was just one lockdown camera shot of a wide area of what's going on. So there was not really any chance for close-ups or any kind of camera movement or things that we would normally associate with good camera work, like actual cinematography. Yeah. There were some that were shot in as B-roll, and George knew in his mind what he wanted. So whenever his original editor came in, he pretty much just edited with mostly the masters. And then of course George didn't like it, and eventually had to fire his own editor.
I have a feeling his editor worked a lot like I do when I edit stuff. So when I'm like, for example, the Whitmer trial, I edited out a lot of stuff, but I just throw it all in there. And then, or like my trip to Sweden video, I threw it all in there. And then I was like, okay, cut here. And then I watched it again. I'm like, all right, let me make another couple of cuts here and here. And it sounded like maybe he stopped halfway through, because especially at the early scenes when Luke is still on Tatooine, there's a bunch of him looking up at the space battle. That's the opening shot. And then him running into the house, and then him talking to his friends. And it's just, this stuff's not necessary. And I just wonder if his editor didn't quite get to that part where he's like, all right, I'm going to watch it again. No, we can cut. Or if it was really something that he needed to fire the editor for. But either way, the wifey saved the day. And she did not get credit for it until years later. And then he ended up divorcing her. And then like 10 years after the divorce, he gave her an editing credit in the movie.
Yeah.
Something along those lines. Maybe she won it in the divorce. I can't remember. But yeah, so it was this kind of family drama thing for a little bit. But she did a lot of the work.
Yeah.
And
speaking of cinematography there, can we just take a moment to appreciate the beautiful, wordless visual storytelling that is the opening shot of this movie?
Mm-hmm. Ooh,
okay.
We're gonna play it.
Yeah, we're going to play it. I'm going to,
I love this.
It's only a minute. Shot. It's a minute 12. I'm going to play it with no sound, obviously, to try and not get the yeetest elitist, but here we go. All right. So, and I've got the sound off, but I wish we could play the sound because the sound really makes it. So the opening title crawl ends, and so the shot or the title crawl ends, and then we pan just slightly down, and you could see the top of Tatooine right there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when things start. And it seems like, okay, a little spacescape there. It looks pretty impressive. Great matte painting work.
This
and
is the original.
Zoom.
This is the original version.
So right here, Rebels, Empire. You get a sense of how small and ill-equipped the rebellion is compared to the Empire because of this one beautiful, masterful shot where you have this tiny little rebel ship running away from this hulking Star Destroyer that just seems to go on and on as it flies overhead. So you should
play the Spaceballs intro. If you
guys
ever watch Spaceballs, which is a parody of this, they have a ship that passes and it goes and it goes and it goes for like 20 seconds. The ship is passing by. It's so ridiculous.
Oh, it's actually I think it's over a minute and a half. The Spaceball 1 is traveling across, and I'm just like, I really want to know who the prop designer on that was, because oh my god, the number of Greeblies that he had to buy to make that thing had to be astronomical. And if you don't know what Greeblies
by the way,
are,
is a technical term for little things that you just stick on ships to make it look like it's something important. If you ever see my Star Wars room and you see the door to the Millennium Falcon cockpit, There's a bunch of Greeblies on there, which is made up of all kinds of random stuff, but it looks like it's something important.
Yeah, what they used to do back in the day is they would go and they would buy model kits. They would buy tons of model kits,
Like
and
tanks
what they would,
or airplanes from
tanks,
World War
airplanes,
II.
yeah.
And
And
then
then they would vacuum seal them, or they would like vacuum mold them. It was pretty amazing.
And they would cut out a little part that's supposed to be like a gear that goes on a tank tread or something, and then they would put it, a few of them on these spaceships. And there's one in particular. If you could do a deep dive into people who have tried to recreate the Millennium Falcon with the exact Greeblies and the exact kits that they used, people will scour old World War II models and things like that, because that's what they were using.
Yep.
And there was one that was elusive forever, and I can't remember where it is on the top of the Millennium Falcon. Somebody finally identified it a few years ago.
There was only one company who has ever been able to produce a Millennium Falcon model kit from the original 1977 Star Wars and actually do it exactly the way it is, and that was Bandai. A few years ago, they actually got the access to the original Millennium Falcon shooting prop.
Yeah.
And so they laser scanned it, and it's a 1/72nd scale model. It's like $400 or $500. I wish I could get one. It's massive.
Bigger,
it's like 3
bigger
feet long.
nerds than me excited, that's for sure.
Standard nerds.
Yes,
oh no.
Exactly. Yeah, bigger nerds than me. But that's what a Greebly is. And it's called kit bashing. And it's where you would just tear apart other models just to get something that would look like it's supposed to go on a spaceship.
Yep.
And it's really cool. But you can also look at that giant Star Destroyer and think the government, and that little ship is us.
Yep.
Too. It's a metaphor.
Exactly. It's wordless storytelling, and it is beautiful. So, yeah, I'm just going to let it roll here. There's a little skip in the video, but that's the video. It's not anything I've got control over. And just the attention to detail here just amazes me every time. The pyrotechnic modeling on that.
But again, like we were talking about earlier, right? So you go to that, and then you immediately go to R2 and C3PO. The story revolves around that. It's not their story, right? It's Luke Skywalker's story, but the story is all told around these two characters. These are the first people that you see in the whole story. They're there throughout the whole thing. It happens around them.
Yep. Excited was talking about, I got her reference to the IT Crowd. I'm like, I love that show. It is so good.
I don't know the IT Crowd.
It's a British comedy series. It ran for like 3 seasons, and they did like the 4th season was basically a 45-minute movie. It is well worth the price of admission. It's well worth the watch. I think it's on Netflix right now.
Maybe. Kind of like C3PO and R2D2 are the camera. Or they're the ones telling the story, right? A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Well, everybody's dead if it's a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, except for maybe lifeless droids. It could be their story that they're telling about, So, and in fact, C3PO does some storytelling of this very thing in Return of the Jedi. So,
right.
But so they're maybe the point of view that we sort of see this whole story from.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
All right.
Historical context. Or do you have more to talk about? Yeah, he tells the Ewoks.
I did have one last thing with prop design.
Okay.
This is a problem that I have.
With
because
the movie?
This is a literal plot hole.
All right.
Well, not literal plot hole. This is the plot hole of Star Wars. And I tell you, once you see this, once you understand what I'm talking about, you will never be able to unsee this.
Oh, God, you got to ruin it for me. All right, what do we got?
The Stormtrooper blaster rifle. All right. The E11 blaster rifle.
Okay.
All right. Let me explain, because this needs to be understood.
We're talking about Obi-Wan's comment about these aren't sand people because the shots are too accurate for sand people. This has got to be Imperial Stormtroopers.
Okay, well, that it ties into that, but it's not specifically. This breaks the entire movie for me.
All right.
Okay, I'm pulling up some things right now. So,
but yeah, so that is a plot hole that many people point to, though, because that's one of Obi-Wan's lines, and it's clear that the main characters have plot armor, right? So they never get shot.
Yeah.
And so they're like, well, the stormtroopers must be horrible shots. How could then they be accurate according to Obi-Wan?
Yeah.
And so that's always a running joke. And in fact, actually, I will say this one thing. Did you watch any of Mandalorian?
Yes, I've seen Mandalorian seasons 1 and 2.
Did you? Okay, so the first episode of season 2, after the two stormtroopers, when they take Baby Yoda at the end of season 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're out there in the desert and they're waiting to get the call like, hey, come back, it's all clear, and they're shooting at the cannon, they keep missing.
Yeah, that little joke. That's great.
All right.
Hey, what's up, traveling fools? Good to see you there. Okay, so here's the thing. This breaks the entire Empire. This makes the Empire look not only like incompetent from a perspective of, war fighting, this also makes them look incompetent from supply chain.
Okay.
And a number of other things. All right. This right here is the E11 blaster rifle. This is one of the original props from the movie.
Okay.
So this is what you may or may not know is that aside from these fins that are glued on up here on the front and a rail that goes across the top of this to mount this, this actually was half of a binocular that they used for a scope. Now, for those of you who don't know, pretty much all of the firearms, like the actual blasters and guns in Star Wars, were based on real guns in real life. Han Solo's infamous DL-44 was a modified Mauser C96 broom handle. The big rifle-looking guns that they had a couple of times were actually like MG-34s, and those weren't even modified in the scenes. So a lot of World War II era firearms. And what you might know here is that the E11 blaster rifle is based off of the Sterling submachine gun from Great Britain. Now, I'm going to show you a picture of the Sterling submachine gun. And I want you to notice something from these two pictures. And I want you to be very, very, very observant. This is the Sterling. Do you notice something about this thing?
The stock?
Yes, because the stock folds and stows underneath here. So this is a stock, a shoulder stock, which never gets used ever in Star Wars. They never deploy the stocks on their blaster rifles. And I swear to God, if they would deploy the damn stocks, these stormtroopers would be nailing bullseyes and throwing threes from half court away and absolutely just decimating everybody. But no, because apparently style or cool guy points, they don't do that.
They shoot from the hip.
Yeah.
They do a lot of shooting from the hip. Okay. But
so this, yeah. I was going to say, this is where it breaks.
Yeah, no, and I see that. I see where it's folded up there. But is it a stock in the Star Wars universe? Or is it something else?
That's the thing.
Do they identify it? Like if I go through the encyclopedia, right? Because you guys don't know, there's encyclopedias that identify all these things,
Yeah.
right? And what they are and how they work. You can break down a lightsaber and all this stuff. Do they identify that as a stock in the encyclopedia? That's my first question. What do they identify it as?
Well, let's find out.
Because if they identify it as a stock, I would agree with you that that's a problem. It's a problem for obviously training the stormtroopers.
Okay, so here's what we need to look at here. So according to Star Wars, this is actually from Wikipedia. This is the E11 blaster rifle. So they actually show it with a deployable stock.
Okay, so they're bad training.
It's terrible training, and it's also because it's bad military doctrine. It is also a stupid supply chain. Because if they're never going to use these stocks, then why even bother with the stocks in the first place? Save the material, use the material to build other things.
Okay, let me push back with you on that a little bit for the supply chain thing. So there was a question that was posed a few years ago, why the stormtrooper armor is so vulnerable, right? It's armor, right? But yet when they get shot, it doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
And so but if you think about it in a real sense, like think about right now our military industrial complex. For what we want to say about the federal government, there actually is a budget, right?
Yes.
And so now the empire is working with a budget. They don't have literally unlimited resources, but it seems like it. Within that budget, they need to equip thousands of stormtroopers with the armor, with other clothing that goes underneath the armor, with their firearms, and with all this stuff. And when you do that, you start buying things on a budget. Sometimes corners need to be cut. Now, maybe this thing was made up for some other reason, and they had them lying around, and so they could buy them cheap. And that's how the empire got them. It's the same thing with their armor, right? You could make an absolute blaster proof, set of armor. We've seen it with other characters, but that's got to be expensive. It's heavy, it's expensive, it takes a lot more material to do it. So you're kind of buying on a budget. You're like, well, it's good enough, right? So is
military
it possible
grade
that they thought this is good enough, and that's why the stormtroopers are carrying it? We would just need to get guns in hands. We need to get armor on bodies. It's good enough. And that is a legitimate, rational basis for that and for the armor and for some of the other things that are going on. Or even talking about training, right? These aren't clone troopers, which we'll get into in the prequels. These are guys that are plucked off of the street and that are trained. Honestly, I don't think we know what type of training they receive. We talk about, you see it a little bit in Solo, kind of, sort of, but not really. It's talked about a little bit, but in think back to World War One, and particularly World War One, when they were grabbing guys, throwing them through quick boot camp, and then getting them out there on the front lines. It could be something like that. And so it's a cheap gun. They weren't properly trained. They have adequate armor that's just adequate enough, and they throw them out there. They just need bodies. And it might be one of those situations, which is completely rational and reasonable.
Yeah, they need to throw it's another YouTuber that I like to watch who does a lot of like military stuff. He calls it accuracy by volume.
Yeah, Napoleon won a lot of battles, accuracy by volume, right? So there's some truth to that. If you get enough guns firing in the right direction, you're going to
eventually one will hit something. Yeah,
exactly. Well, and the other thing too is, if you really want to break this down, they've done studies about soldiers in combat. Going back to the Civil War, where there was a guy that had like 6 or 7 rounds loaded, powder bullet, never fired a one. They did surveys with guys in Vietnam that would always fire over the enemy's head, because killing a person is kind of a hard thing to convince someone else to do.
Right.
And so, and the accuracy of firing is a serious issue for our military today, because your natural instinct is to not kill another person. The same thing could apply to the stormtroopers as to why they're so bad at shooting. So there's a lot of factors that could easily be explained away. The fact that they don't use the stocks, I feel like they probably would have been trained with them.
Yeah.
But so that is kind of a plot hole, especially if they identify it as a stock. But I don't know. I feel like that's not a deal breaker for me in this.
It is, to me, it is the most glaring and biggest plot hole in the entire Star Wars franchise.
All right.
At least that's just my opinion.
I think it's for me, it's more concerning that Obi-Wan says how accurate the stormtroopers are, and they don't seem to be able to hit anything else in the rest of the movie.
Yep. Maybe the ones that hit the Jawas were using their stocks.
Well, Jawas aren't people, right? Maybe it's easier to shoot them too. I'm just thinking outside the box here, right?
Easier to shoot aliens than people. Well, that's a little xenophobic.
Right? Well,
I mean, that was the Empire, though. I mean, because you know that the Empire is almost pretty much exclusively human.
They are. Did you know that Earth exists in the Star Wars universe?
It does. I think it's in another galaxy, isn't it?
It was placed in another galaxy, but it's referenced specifically in a lot of the what it used to be canon is now
the expanded universe.
The legends. But yeah, Earth does exist, and humans obviously exist, and they all speak English fairly well too. A lot of them with a British accent.
Yeah,
but yeah, so that's interesting. I didn't know that was a stock. I never really looked at them that closely.
Yeah, that's one of those things that, I mean, it stuck out to my mind, not only as I'm a bit of a firearms guy, and I'm also a prop guy. So I notice these things. I kind of look at, the prop design, and I've been known to, when I'm building something, especially whenever I did my my 1/72 scale X-Wing, actually going in and down to the fine details, finding the shooting models on the screen and kind of trying to get it as close to screen correct as possible. So, yeah.
Yeah, Tia, I mean, they couldn't hit water if they fell out of a boat. Yeah, that's kind of the running joke with the stormtroopers. But again, it's all in my mind. It's sort of rational. You can ration it away if you look at the military industrial complex that has to be going on with an empire, right? We talk about how big our army is. This is an army. I mean, the U.S. military, but this is an army that literally covers a galaxy, and so it's it's millions of troopers, right? It's not even thousands; it's millions of troopers. You've got to supply them with something, and you got to get it the cheapest way possible, and it's got to be just functional enough. You got to train them just well enough, and it could all be explained away.
Right. Okay.
Historical context.
Yes, historical context.
So, now, I mean, I'm talking about historical context when I wrote this up from our reality, right? So this is the first Star Wars movie that came out.
Bye, Jude.
Before this, it existed entirely within George Lucas's mind.
Right.
And this is an extremely pivotal point in cinema where we are taking this science fantasy kind of idea and really making it mainstream. This thing blew up. If you weren't, around at the time, I was barely around at the time for this, but I remember the original toys and played with them and saw the movies, and it was a thing that existed. It's not like it is now where there's a lot of things, like there's Marvel Cinematic Universe and all this stuff. This was brand new. This was all there was. So this is a very historically important movie for filmmaking, as well as just setting off the whole Star Wars universe in and of itself. So those are essentially my notes on the historical context of this. In universe, the historical context of this movie in universe, and maybe we're getting more into I guess I was getting maybe a little more into the cultural significance in that explanation, but historically within the Star Wars universe itself, it is the first time that the rebels have really dealt a blow against the Empire. And we don't know what happened prior to this. I mean, we have an idea. We know that there's a civil war. We know that there's an emperor. We know that there's a group of people that are trying to fight back against it. But we really don't know what's going on at the time we see this movie. All we know is that it's kind of really important that they get a win. And they get that win. And it really, the movie is retitled A New Hope. And I think that name is very deliberate because it's the first time in sort of all the history of Star Wars that we've seen on the big screen, even going back to the prequels, where there's actually kind of a hope, right? I mean, because you go back to episode 1, if we're going to start there, everything's kind of starting to go downhill really quickly. And it doesn't go the other way until this movie. So this is the first time that we're really getting back to where, starting to make some traction here on defeating the Empire and getting some peace, maybe. Now, I guess we learn later that it doesn't last, but this is that's where we are in universe historically. Is it's the first time that there's any significant pushback against this downhill slide that they've been on for 30 years, 40 years within universe. So that's my historical context for it.
Yeah, and I really don't think I could add too much to that. I think that actually pretty well nails it, to be completely honest there. So
I did go into some of the cultural significance. I kind of jumped down into that a little bit, which is our next subject. Obviously, like I said before, this was a huge phenomenon. It went beyond a movie. It went in, we don't get it very much anymore. But even back then, it was rare for movies to be re-released in theaters just a year later, which was what happened. And I think this movie stayed in theaters for like 3 years or something in total.
It was.
Until Empire Strikes Back came out. It was in theaters, which was unheard of at the time.
Yeah, because it got a theatrical re-release, I know, in 78 and 81. I know that. So...
Yeah, so it was out in 77, it was out in 78, it was out in 81. And then I mean, so it spent a lot of time in theaters.
Yeah. And with regard to that, I mean, I would say that
there was a parade, a Star Wars parade. There was the, NBC picked up a Star Wars Christmas special.
Oh, the infamous Star Wars holiday special,
which was a disaster, but everyone wanted their hands on Star Wars. But there was literally a parade in LA, literally just for Star Wars. It wasn't like Star Wars participated in a different parade. There was a Star Wars parade going on, and it was a thing. It wasn't just a movie. So that's all I have to say about the cultural impact.
Yeah. So Star Wars, I mean, really changed the cultural zeitgeist where it considers like film as a whole. Sci-fi was kind of, as we've talked about earlier, sci-fi was viewed as kind of like a stodgy, like an old man's type of like entertainment or a nerd's entertainment. It was not really something that people really like to watch. And then Star Wars comes along and it popularizes a lot of the stuff. It uses familiar and yet, like tropes, but yet also manages to relate these in a new and exciting way, in a kind of a genre that we've never seen them in before. And then, of course, on top of that, you have this pioneering visual effects team that really elevates the visuals of this to a completely new level. So what I guess you could say what I really want to explain there is that really outside, like after 1977, you notice that there's a lot more sci-fi movies that start getting made, and they have much more of this pop culture feel, much more like Star Wars. They're trying to ape off of the Star Wars mythos, or at least the overarching the feel of the Star Wars movies. It was really it was such a strange thing, because in 1979. When they made Star Trek the motion picture, the fact that they decided to go with a Star Trek movie, like a motion picture Star Trek movie, like a theatrical movie, and they decided to model it more off of 2001: A Space Odyssey instead of Star Wars, was at the time it was kind of seen as a bit of a, wait, what, are you guys sabotaging your movie? Now, no matter what some people say about it, I do love the Star Trek the motion picture. I think it does not get the accolade it deserves. But I'll have to talk to Sal about that one because he's a big Star Wars or Star Trek guy.
Trekkie scum.
But yeah, I think there's room in my heart for both camps. So, but yeah, it's one of those where the fact that kind of stuck around the way it did was just kind of very odd. But yeah, I mean, because you look at sci-fi after Star Wars, and it was just very different. And this movie left a cultural impact on how we view movies as a whole.
Yes,
and I don't think that can be. I don't think that can be understated.
No, I agree. And Tia Nina asked, or in the chat, she says personal significance. She mentioned as well, and that's actually sort of our next thing is our personal response to this movie.
Yep.
I was born in 80, so I wasn't around for when they were in theaters. I mean, I was for the third one, but I didn't go.
Yep.
At least I don't remember going, but I grew up watching them on TV, and then we had the VHS, and I think we probably even had beta copies of it, and always watching it. And it'll always have, this particular movie will always have sort of a special place in my childhood, and then apparently in my adulthood as well. I don't know what it is about it that's so, why I like it so much. I mean, we talked about Luke and his character arc, and it's a simple character arc. It's really not that complicated, right? I mean, it's the hero's journey. It's point by point, beat by beat, the hero's journey. And maybe that's why it's kind of like those summer hit songs. You know,
Yep.
It's a few chords, and they play it at the right time, and everyone just sort of jams out to it, and everyone's listening to it all summer long, because it's something psychological that hits you. And maybe that's what's going on here with these movies. Psychologically, they just sort of hit you. But yeah, I mean, it's, for me, it's I like the universe, and this is your first step into that universe. And as we go further down with these videos, and we'll talk about the other movies and some that people don't like, and the Disney ones and things like that.
Yep.
I like it all because it further expands the universe, even if it's bad, or even if it's, it's not quite what I wanted. It still further expands the universe. And that's why I'm partial to the one-off stuff, to the to Rogue One, to Solo, to Andor, where they really expand the universe more than follow a particular character or a family around. I prefer those more because I am very intrigued by the universe. So that's how it hits me.
And similarly, because I'm an 86 baby, so I came around 3 years after Return of the Jedi was even out of theaters. So the way I guess you could kind of say it was that, of course, my parents were sci-fi, folks. They really were into, that. Of course, they were also theater people in high school and whatnot. I got a lot of my experience with enjoying special effects from my dad, because my dad did a lot of like stage play effects, stage design. His high school actually did a really cool production of Brigadoon, and he still has the original set designs and blueprints that he drew himself, including they actually, for those who don't know, in Brigadoon, like it's a city or like a town that only appears out of a mist every so often. And so when the actual like stage play is supposed to begin, like it's supposed to kind of like take place in this like fog. Well, normally it's hard to really do that on a stage play. Well, what my dad did, and what really just kind of threw me, was that rigged up a couple of 55-gallon plastic drums with some small fans, like they were basically like bathroom fans. Ran what was the dryer vent hose through the entire outside edge of the theater, like through the entire auditorium, and just kind of tucked them off to the corner. And they were full of dry ice and water. And the second that they brought the house lights down, instead of like bringing the house lights down and then like kind of, immediately going into the stage play, they kept the house lights down for about 30 seconds. So it's pitch black in there. And so as soon as the house lights go down, they flip these things on. So the audience is none the wiser. They can't see anything. And what's really fun is that they leave the lights off just long enough to kind of hear people starting to kind of get uneasy in their chairs and like, okay, what's going on? What are they doing? And then they bring the lights back up, and the entire audience is waist deep in fog. And
that's cool.
So that is makes excited. So that's where I get a lot of my excitement for production design and like props and, just the behind the scenes stuff. That was where I got my interest, and it was from my dad, and it's always carried with me. And one of the, so when I was younger, I think I was probably like, I don't know exactly how long. I was probably 3 or 4, and my dad, they released the Star Wars movies on VHS, and we had one of the like early generation VHS players, and he was able to get the copies of them, and he was like, hey, you want to watch this? And I'm like, of course, little kid, and I was completely blown away by it. And it became something where I mean, in my childhood alone, I probably watched those movies in the triple digits.
Oh yeah.
It was like a Saturday. There's nothing happening, and I just throw in Star Wars. I'm sure that those tapes were so worn out by the time that we finally got the DVD copies that it was kind of ridiculous.
It was so hard. My son had them because he wanted, for some reason, he went through a stage where he was like retro tech, and he got a VHS player, and he wanted all these VHS movies. And so I gave him those and some others. And then he kind of got past that. And we're like, all right, let's get rid of the VHS tapes. I think we still have the Star Wars ones though. I can't just give those away,
Right.
I'm going to hang on to those for a bit. I don't have a VCR, but for some reason I still have those tapes.
Yeah, somewhere in my parents' basement is a box full of their old VHS tapes, including the original Star Wars trilogy and the original release on VHS of the Lord of the Rings Ralph Bakshi animated movie.
Nice. No, I think those are the only VHS tapes I still own are the Star Wars ones.
Yeah.
But anyways, it's a phenomenal movie. It's set off a whole chain of events. It has a lot of personal impact for me, Kaiser, sounds like as well, and a lot of other people. It was a huge phenomenon, and it was the start of not only Star Wars, but hopefully continuing these streams as well, because we're going to talk about all of them. And we talked about, I think we're going to do a release order, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about the movies in release order. I think that's the most appropriate way to do it.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll do Empire, and then Jedi, and then we'll go back and do the prequel trilogy.
Empire,
then,
second greatest Star Wars movie ever.
Okay. I actually put Empire above the others, but that's just me.
Well, Empire was number one forever until Rogue One.
Yeah.
I just like Rogue One because it doesn't follow the same. We get into it, but Rogue One is above Empire for me, but Empire is very close to number 2. And maybe they oscillate. Maybe they go back and forth depending on my mood.
Yeah.
But so I'm really excited for Empire.
I'm definitely looking forward to Empire because that one is my favorite by far, and the storytelling, the plot, and the way that everything was conveyed, and the introduction of the character that I probably most love in Star Wars, who went on to be completely and utterly destroyed in the prequel trilogy, unfortunately.
I don't think so. You think so?
Yeah, I do.
Wait.
Well, trust me, when we get into the prequels, I will more than explain.
Okay. All right. We'll check it out then. We'll address it then. I don't think it was necessarily that bad, but we got to see him fight with a lightsaber.
Oh yeah. That was good. Yeah, the first duel between Luke and Vader. That was I get chills.
Oh, this didn't save right. I was trying to save a thing. Oh well. Anyways.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's about all I have to say about Star Wars Episode 4.
I think that pretty well covers it. And so we'll kind of back and forth on this, but I mean, I think the original thought that we had was that we would kind of like alternate between our channels and whatnot for each movie. So yeah, I think the next one we'll do over on. Okay. I mean, either way.
You're kind of the movie guy, so we could just keep them here. Yeah, I'm fine with that. I just save it in my playlist of other channels that I'm on, and then I'll probably create a playlist related to Star Wars because I've got one now with Flux and now one with you, and I'll have a lot more with you. So.
Oh, cool. Yeah. You're all clear, kid. Now let's blow this thing and go home.
Oh, that's a perfect way to end.
Yep.
This.
I was just like, Tia. Excellent. Chef's kiss.
I like Tia. Tia's awesome.
She is. I love her. Oh, man.
Tia needs to slide into my DMs and show me her Princess Leia outfits.
Hell. Yep. All right, folks. That, I think, does it for us tonight. Thank you all out there so much for joining us. And this has been fun. I have been looking forward to this for quite a while, and I am so thankful to Dave here for proposing this idea and, actually agreeing to do this because, I get good feels.
Yes. No, this is my favorite universe of movies to talk about, and this is gonna be a good time going forward.
Absolutely, it is.
Now that we're playing clips, I'm gonna send you some stuff for the next one for sure. Yeah, I'm gonna send you some stuff.
Yeah, I had a couple that I had picked out, but we didn't actually end up using for this one. They might come up later in other ones because they kind of go to all of the Star Wars movies. But yeah, you got anything going there, bud?
What is today? I don't even know.
Thursday.
Tomorrow's Friday. I'll be on Laid Back News with Eric Hunley tomorrow. I'm hoping to get in another Whitmer stream, Whitmer kidnapping trial stream at some point tomorrow. And then Saturday, of course, is Jody Day. And then I'm probably going to try to get the rest of Whitmer done over the weekend and early in the next week, because the following Monday, the 30th, we have a new trial we're starting. It is the love triangle out of Texas. I can't remember her name at the moment, but anyway, she killed a up and coming cyclist star, rode like a mountain bike racer, in a love triangle sort of thing. And
okay, mountain biking is okay.
Huh?
Mountain biking is okay. Yeah, people the cyclists that ride around the roads. No.
Yeah, no
sympathy.
She did mountain biking until she was murdered by the girlfriend of her lover, and so this should be a good trial. And she just made an escape attempt last week, so that was fun.
Oh my gosh.
She ran from the police, and she couldn't make it over the fence, so they caught her. But so that case is coming up on the 30th, and I'm gonna start streaming that live. So I want to get through the rest of the Whitmer trial. So that's what I'll be pushing to get done. Yeah, Caitlin Armstrong. There it is. Jeez, I couldn't think of her name. Caitlin Armstrong.
Well, I mean, if somebody in this chat knew it, it would be excited.
Yeah, of course it would be her. Thank you, excited.
All right. Well, folks, as far as I've got planned, I might have a little bit of a bug in the works right now, so I may not be doing a whole lot of content the rest of this weekend and whatnot. I know that I've got a D&D session on Saturday. I've still got to do a lot of writing and everything for. But so my plans are for right now, Monday, get back to doing my usual videos. And then, of course, on next Wednesday, we're doing Edge of Reality. And I'm actually planning ahead on that one. This is one that I've been wanting to cover for a while, and I wanted to make sure that I did it at the right time. So this will actually come very close to the Halloween holiday, and we're going to be doing the origin of Halloween itself.
Ooh,
and
very cool.
The origins are very different than what you think, because somehow every culture in every corner of the entire globe, separated by tens of thousands of miles, and yet somehow all of these cultures all have to share, like they all seem to share a belief that right there on the last days of October and the first days of November of the calendar year of every year is a celebration of the dead. How did that get started? Where did that come from? And I think you might be surprised by some of the recent research on that.
That's strange. Very cool. Looking forward to that next Thursday, you said?
That'll be next Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern.
Okay.
And then on Thursday, I'm doing my next episode of Real Talk Live. I have not yet picked a topic for that one, so might be seeing about doing another panel. Just see if anybody wants to just kind of, talk about recent pop culture or something like that, or some things going on. But
there's some shakeup in Disney.
There's a lot of shakeup in Disney. Holy moly.
So, no, very cool. And there's also Loki, too. I don't know if you're watching Loki.
I have not yet. As far as I'm concerned, Loki is basically Ahsoka for the MCU.
Oh, Loki is awesome. Actually, my dad even got into Loki. He doesn't watch any of the Marvel stuff, but he loved Loki. And so now he's watching season 2.
Oh, you excited? Let me know the time and whatnot. I will see if I can make it. I've still got to try and finish my costume, but I will try to make it as best I can. I'll probably have to improvise part of it.
Only one costume? I have 3 already, man. I got 3 costumes for Halloween.
I don't usually. Well, one, I'm a giant fat ass, so I don't have a lot of costumes. And then 2, I just don't have a lot of costumes because I just never really actually watched. I never really go out or dress up or anything like that. I think the most I ever did was like a couple of years ago. We did a murder mystery party on Halloween, and I dressed up like Bob Ross. So,
oh, nice, that's awesome.
But I need to get a pair of lobster claw gloves for my my current costume.
I would say that this is part of my costume for Halloween.
Oh, there you go.
One of them. I got to figure out a way to. Yeah, I can do this.
Thursday, probably 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Okay. Thursday.
I should dress as MC Law for Halloween. That would be awesome.
That Thursday is actually going to be the same day as my Real Talk Live, so I may just shuffle over to you then in that case.
Cool.
Who knows? We'll see. I'll see how things plan out. I'll keep you posted, and feel free to message me on Twitter. I think we're friends on there already, but yeah. All right, folks. That is all for us tonight. Thank you all so much for watching. Please, if you haven't already done so, please definitely go over and check out Dave's channel, MLS, or Making Law Simple Network.
Nudes. You guys will love it.
Yeah, the infamous Jodi Arias trial.
Yes.
And then definitely give him a like and a sub. And then also definitely go down there, hit that like button on this video, subscribe to my channel as well. I am on my way to 700 subscribers. I am actually, as of right now, I am at 688. I am 12 subscribers away from 700. And yeah, if we can keep pushing, I can try and make 1,000 by first of the year. That's kind of my that's the goal I'm setting for myself. So
nice.
Kicking it hard. All right, folks. Thank you all. Have a great day. Have a great night. See you all later. This is Kaiser and Dave out.